Welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into something we all depend on, but, we probably don't think about enough: the science of our food. We're going to uncover the incredible journey and all the innovation that happens way, way before a meal ever gets to our kitchen. Let's get into it.
I mean, really, have you ever just stopped and thought about it? It is so much more than just a simple trip from a farm to your table. The story of how we feed billions of people. Well, it's a genuine marvel of science. And honestly, it's way more complex and fascinating than you'd think.
Because, you see, you can't feed billions of people by accident. It requires a system. It's this carefully designed process, a mix of old-school knowledge and brand-new science, all pointing to one goal: making our food resources better, more efficient, and more sustainable.
All right, so where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts right there in the ground, with farmers using some unbelievably clever strategies to squeeze the most out of every single inch of land. Yeah, getting a huge harvest isn't about luck. It is all about having a game plan. It's not just about tossing seeds out there and hoping for the best. Farmers use these really specific cropping patterns to get better yields, make the soil healthier, and even to protect themselves against a bad year. Now, this is where it gets really clever. Check out these 3 core strategies. Think of mixed cropping kind of like a diversified stock portfolio, right? If one crop fails, you've got another to back you up. Intercropping, that's all about smart partnerships, where different crops that need different things from the soil grow right next to each other. And then there's crop rotation, which is like the long-term health plan for the soil itself, making sure it never gets totally drained of nutrients.
Of course, you can have the best planting strategy in the world, but it means absolutely nothing without the one key ingredient: water. And just like everything else we're talking about, there's a real science to getting that part just right.
So, on the one hand, you've got your sprinkler system. It's pretty much what it sounds like. It mimics rainfall, and it's great for sandy soils that need a wide spray. But then you have drip irrigation. This is, without a doubt, the most efficient method we have. It delivers water drop by drop right to the roots. It saves a ton of water and even helps keep weeds down. It's a real game changer. So the crops are in the ground, they're getting watered, everything's going great. But now the conflict in our story arrives. Because a farmer's field is not a peaceful place. There is a constant battle going on to protect that harvest from all sorts of threats.
And here are our main villains. You've got weeds, you've got insect pests, and you've got diseases. Each one of these is a serious problem, and they can easily damage or, well, completely destroy a crop if you don't stop them.
First up, let's talk about weeds. And believe me, they're so much more than just annoying little plants. They are direct competitors. They steal the food, the sunlight, and the space that our crops need to grow. Keeping them under control is absolutely critical for a good harvest.
And then we've got the insect pests. And wow, they attack in some pretty nasty ways. Some of them will literally chop up the plant's roots and leaves. Others will suck the life-giving sap right out of its cells. And some will even drill their way right into the stems and fruits, just ruining them from the inside out. Now, the obvious weapon in this fight is pesticides, right? They can definitely be effective, but there is a major catch. This quote here really hits it home. It reminds us that if you use too many of these chemicals, they can be toxic to other animals and lead to serious environmental pollution. So it's a very, very delicate balancing act. All right, the crops are harvested. Victory, right? You might think the battle is won, but nope, not yet. The challenge just moves from the open field to the storage silo. Protecting those grains after the harvest is just as important.
And this slide lays out the new threats perfectly. You have what are called biotic factors. That's the living stuff like insects, rodents, and bacteria. But you also have abiotic or non-living factors, like too much moisture in the air or the wrong temperature. Both of these can cause huge losses, degrading quality, reducing weight, and making the grain basically worthless.
So, how do we stop that from happening? Well, it all comes down to a few really key preventative steps. First, you have to clean everything thoroughly before it goes into storage. Then comes this crucial drying process. And finally, fumigation, which uses a special chemical smoke to take out any pests that might have tried to sneak in.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time talking about what happens in the fields, but that's really only half of the story when it comes to our food. So now let's totally switch gears and look at the other major pillar of our food system, the animals. This is where a practice called animal husbandry comes into play. It's a bit of a formal term, but what it really means is the scientific management of livestock. The whole goal is to improve the production of things like milk, eggs, meat, and wool. And this table gives us a fantastic overview of what that looks like. You've got cattle farming, mainly for milk and for farm work. You've got poultry farming for, you guessed it, eggs and meat. And then you have sheep, goats, and pigs, which give us a whole range of stuff like wool, mutton, and pork. Each one is its own specialized field.
But here's where it gets even cooler. Science isn't just about how we manage these animals, it's also used to improve the animals themselves. And this is done through really careful and selective breeding.
And this slide highlights a classic dilemma, especially in cattle farming. On one hand, you've got your indigenous or local breeds. They're super tough and resistant to local diseases, but they don't produce a lot of milk. On the other hand, you have exotic or foreign breeds that produce a ton of milk but are way more likely to get sick. So what do?
Well, the scientific solution is actually pretty brilliant. You crossbreed them. By combining the local and foreign breeds, you can create a new generation that, hopefully, gets the best traits from both parents. You get the high milk yield and the strong disease resistance. It's the best of both worlds.
So as we start to wrap this up, it's just amazing to see how all these different pieces fit together. You've got the smart cropping patterns, the efficient irrigation, the careful protection of the harvest, and the scientific breeding of animals. Each one is a small, calculated improvement that adds up to this one massive, monumental task, feeding our entire planet.
And that really leaves us with one last really important question to chew on. The science we've talked about today is what keeps us fed right now. But as our world keeps changing, and as our population keeps growing, what new ideas, what new innovations are we going to need to come up with to feed the world of tomorrow?